chapter clicked in to College Volleyball Weekly on Viral Volley Media. Now here's your host, Rob on mic.
Hey, good day, everyone, and welcome to College Volleyball Weekly Men's Top 20. It is our NCAA recap debrief after the national championship match, and we're missing a couple, but for the most part, we will probably see them jump on live here. I wanted to say we took the week off because I reached out to this wonderful, loving, servant-hearted, and diehard volleyball crew, and they said they needed a break, and I get it. It was an intense run towards the end there, and they needed some time off. We wanted to have renewed thoughts and fresh eyes on what we saw, so we figured we'd extend it out a little bit after the Memorial Day weekend. Some were at bachelorette parties. Remember, there's only one of them on here, so you can figure out who the bachelorette is, because it ain't Brad, because he's got a little one.
It could be Jay. It could be Jay.
Could be
It
Jay.
could be. I celebrated in my own way, but it was not nearly as fruitful and fun.
As I was jumping into this episode, I realized it's episode 313, and my wife and I just celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary, and our room was number 313, believe it or not.
Wow.
Laguna Beach, California, the Surf and Sand Resort, a beautiful place, highly recommend it. No, I'm not getting paid, but I ran into a Frenchman there who hadn't heard of Hilaire Hano or Andre Jokanovic, and he goes to UCI. But
who are those guys?
And coming in hot, well, there you go here. Nickie Sanlin, head coach of McKendree. You got Jay Hosack of George Mason, Brad Rosstratter of UC San Diego, and of course, San Fernando State or CSUN head coach Theo Edwards. I'm sure Dan, after his MVP Libero performance for Team Novus this last weekend, may come in, may not. We'll see. And Jay's pointing at his son. I want him to explain his son over his shoulder.
Well, listen, it's obvious, congrats to Hawaii for winning the national championship. But my little play on words, Hawaii is spelled with a number 1 at the end.
There we go.
Marketing, my friends. Marketing. ChatGPT, that stuff.
And Hawaiian Tourism Authority, jhosack@gmail.com. If you want to send any kind of gift certificates or anything that way, feel free to throw it his way. But with that, without any further ado, let's jump into that national championship match. By the way, we did that live episode from the press room. I caught Dan in between NCAA final preparation or board meetings and all that. We got 3,000 views on YouTube alone.
Nice.
I was and we did that kind of on the fly. So I was blown away at how many people tuned in for our banter, trash talk, and our picks. I think only 2 of you on here got the right pick though. So they can gloat all they want as we go into the results here. But Monday night's championship match, you got the number 2 seed Hawaii against the unseeded UC Irvine Anteaters. I want you guys just to jump in. I don't want to talk anymore because you guys have the great insight, and I love hearing what you guys have to say. So we'll do the standard ladies first, and the bachelorette, who does not have a pink liquid that's helping her through the morning or anything like that. So
as I get my voice together, all I'll say is King Louis himself. That was impressive. I at first, when I was first watching the match, I was like, Irvine had that emotional jolt punch. They got there, they made it. And then Hawaii said, you know what, we've done this before. We remembered. And it was, I think if I was looking at the numbers right, their transition picked up, they settled more on reception. Obviously I'm looking at the stats right now. It's like Tatrisky, 387, Roar, 323. Obviously, King Louis, 500, Justin Todd, 500. They hit 410 on the match. So I feel like at that point, it's just a recipe for success. As much as I love Neff and the boys, Zat, but Hawaii came out and said, this is why we belong here. I thought that was pretty impressive. And actually, despite what some of the scores were, it was a fun match to watch. And I thought the viewership, what I heard wasn't the viewership great too, from that standpoint for the national championship?
1.5.
Okay.
Or I'm sorry. Let me I have the official number here, but it was 150,000, which is a 78% year over last year increase. So good news for watching men's volleyball. So
Yes, everybody
I'll get
needs
the
to
exact number here. But
watch
please do continue
more of
talking.
the men's volleyball. Yeah, more men's volleyball. I think that I saw on Instagram a lot of fans, friends, coaches. I appreciated from a fan standpoint that people were supporting the Monday night national championship. Uh, and that's what's important. I was at a restaurant with friends and they were willing to turn it on. They gave us access to ESPN and, bringing it to the masses. So congrats, Hawaii.
Yeah. Just so it's 149,000 viewers, which is up 86% year over year. So,
Okay.
and I saw a post from another outlet saying that, and that was with close to zero marketing versus the NCAA Beach Championships, which had just under 500,000 viewers, with aggressive marketing efforts. So keep that in mind. No marketing, close to zero marketing, and the men's game was up in those growth numbers. So, but excellent
And it
breakdown,
was being
Nickie.
streamed. It wasn't even on national TV, which is crazy. Crazy.
Yeah. Well, Theo, you're talking. You can go ahead and talk about your analysis of the national championship match.
Sure. I'll go next. I'll say this. This was kind of a full circle moment, at least for me and my relationship with Tread Rosenthal. I had the pleasure of coaching the U19 group back when Tread and Sean Kelly were a part of that team, and watching those guys end up having the seasons that they did, and obviously full circle to Hawaii, kind of ended up in the finals, and I actually had a sideline moment when we were at Hawaii this year against them, and Tread and I were actually chatting because he was commenting on our setter Owen Doffner, who's also a very tall setter, and was kind of talking about the mistakes that he was making and saying, "Man, I remember making those same ones in my first couple of years," and just seeing the maturity and the growth in that young man, and kind of the player that he has become, the leader that he's become, and then to Nickie's point, the offense that they ended up running. And I think Jay was hinting at it at our last podcast, talking about the injuries he was dealing with, the stuff that he was going through, and still finding a way to bring that team to some serious success. It's just a testament to who he is as a player, as an athlete, as a human being. I was really, really proud of him, and obviously that team was great. Trisky was serving the heck out of the ball, scoring at a ridiculously high rate, and just doing some really, really impressive things. But that team was darn good all year, and they definitely earned their opportunities to be there, and to watch them kind of show up in the moment and look like a team who's been there many times, poised, composed, all of it. It was just absolutely fantastic. So I tip my hat to Hawaii, and big congrats to Tread Rosenthal.
All right. That leaves Brad and Jay, who wants to go up next.
I'll go last.
All right. I think for me, it's really stood out. Like I was really surprised in a good way with how UC Irvine played in that first set. I thought they came out, and that might have been their best set of volleyball they've played all year long, and it couldn't be more impressive. In the biggest stage, in the biggest moment, they were definitely prepared, ready to roll, and really were spot on. In that set, they sided out at 75%. So basically 3 out of the 4 balls they were siding out. And then they limited Hawaii to siding out below 50%. So obviously a pretty strong formula for success there with Irvine. So I thought that really stood out to me off the jump. Is like, oh crap, Irvine is in it. And then I think you saw what everyone's been referring to, is just that pedigree, that expertise, that the experience that Hawaii's had really came to light, where almost the side out stats almost got completely flipped, to where sets 2, 3, and 4, you now have Hawaii siding out at 73%, and then you have Irvine dropping down to just above 50%. So really kind of just 2 different matches from set 1 to sets 2, 3, and 4. And I thought a lot of that came from just the poise and presence of Tread and Sakanoko, and really just Hawaii as a whole, just really kind of staying really consistent, staying really composed, apart from one little jersey tear, really stayed in control and really calm, cool, collected throughout that. Because as we know, like when a team comes out and plays so well in that first set, sometimes it's like, oh crap, we need to change everything we were planning to do and throw everything out, make a bunch of subs. And really, they just kind of said, okay, well done. I don't think you guys can do it like that again. And they were right. And you saw Hawaii pick up the pace a little bit from the service line. And really, I thought Irvine kind of maybe even the first time all year had some passing struggles that we had not seen in sets 2, 3, and 4 with the pressure and some of the aces and the overpasses that mainly Sakanoko and Tatritsky were able to create with their serve from the end line.
Yeah. Excellent, Brad. All right, Jay.
There's so many things that these guys cover that I'll just touch upon briefly. You know, the beauty of volleyball is that every set starts 0-0, and you don't get a lead like in basketball or football or baseball or any of that, and it just continues into the next round or the next set or whatever you want to call it. And, you know, Hawaii came into that match, obviously with a good game plan and everything ready to go, but UCI was riding something completely different. And that first set, they hit 600 to Hawaii's 160, which is really unheard of. That's a large disparity between the two teams. The other two stats that I think that remarked to me were service errors for UCI in that first set. They only made one service error to Hawaii's 5, which 5 is not a lot, but 5-1 is 4 points difference. And blocking. Irvine had 6 blocks, stuff blocks in that first set to Hawaii's 1. And when you looked at that first set being played, Brad nailed it. You know, a lot of coaches, some of us maybe on this screen may have looked at our assistants and went, well, what's going on? How do we fix this? What do we got to change? And you got to give Charlie and his crew some credit. They just looked at their guys and went, yeah, it's one set. It's not that big of a deal. And let's see what we go out with the next one and see if we can execute. I'll comment on a great coach named Russ Rose, who, when asked at a coaching clinic years ago, how do I improve my players' arm swing? And his response was recruit better players. That was his response, because you're not changing arm swings. The difference between that first set and the next 3 is that Hawaii found their groove and they hit 452, 458, and 538 in sets 2, 3, and 4, respectively. Mm-hmm. To Irvine's 214, 067, and 318. Now, if you tell most coaches, hey, you're going to hit 318 in this set, you're going to feel pretty good about that outcome. And you can't keep up with 538. That's ridiculous. The other thing I thought that stuck out to me is that Irvine's known as being a very, very good passing team. And Hawaii was good as a good passing team, but not known for that, so to speak. Neither team passed over a 2.0 in that match on a 4.0 scale until the last set, and Hawaii only passed a 2.4 in that last set. So they got better as the match wore on, and that could be a combination of a lot of things. But you just got to give hats off to Hawaii. You know, they came in, and you know they knew that they were deserving of being there. They knew they had a good team. They were a little up and down throughout the course of the year. There was injuries. There was all kinds of sideline stories, all the stuff going on. And Hawaii just said, look, we're just going to go out and ball and make it happen. And you got to give credit to UC Irvine, because let's be honest, were they supposed to be there? And everybody in the country, with the exception of most Anteater fans, probably will say no. And so what they did was they came in and said, we don't care how we got here. We're just going to ball. And that first set, they came after it. And I got to give Niff and his crew some credit. They played really good volleyball that first set. And unfortunately, it's tough to sustain that for 2, 3, 4 sets in a row. So great match, great final for everybody to watch. I'm glad the viewership was up. I'm pissed off that the NCAA didn't give us more love, but I love the fact that people are out there and trying to force things to happen. Nickie telling everybody just turn on the TV, going somewhere and turning on the TV, that does wonders. I mean, you go to a bar, those TVs are not just, you know, home TV, so to speak. They're publicly accessed, and you get more viewership per because there's more people in their building. So all of those things make an impact. And I hope that in the future we could do that kind of stuff. But just again, congrats to Hawaii. Great job. Great season. Great way to roll through. It wasn't perfect, but you did it in the end. And that's what matters most. So,
yeah. Well, I wanted to drop this for you coaches there, because I really felt some of the X factor players for Hawaii. Yes, they trended upward towards the end. They, like Jay, you pointed out, they actually hit better and the best in that final 4th set, but their middles were getting clutch plays at times when Irvine seemed to be pressing, and I'm referring to Justin Todd and Travell Jordan. But you know, Travell Jordan, 5 kills, 0 errors at 714. Justin Sod, 7 kills. And these two have been the most consistent middles, I believe, in the NCAA this year. And I think that's what's bailed and opened it up for Adrian, Christian, and Louis. But I want to get your guys' take on it.
Well, before you go, Brad, you're the stat guy. How many sets did Clark and Goss get in that match? Do you have that stat in front of you?
Give me a second.
Yep. I should have prefaced that with a text message to you first, but
It's all
think
good.
I think this could be telling.
I have that
I
box
got
score up, Brad.
16. But
16.
they've been minimized.
Yeah.
That's
Clark was
different.
6-2 on 12, and then Goss was 3-0 on 4.
Yeah, that's not a lot of attempts. And that obviously you're not going to force the middle from, 10 feet, 12 feet off that often. So it's not like they were, all year doing that. And then all of a sudden they went away from it. They run them because they're good passers. Clark was getting second the most attempts on a team at some points. And Goss is a really effective middle. And when those two guys are part of your scoring prowess, however many points those guys are scoring per set, and probably, I got to say, between 3 to 5, that's a lot of points for middle blockers to be bringing to the table, everyone. And when you limit them to just a couple, those points add up. And I think that was the real difference maker for Irvine, is that, as good as Djokovic was, he really got a lot of help from his middles all year long. In that match, they limited those guys. And I don't know if that was a strategy that maybe Nip said, hey, they're going to pay more attention to these guys. Let's go away from them more. Maybe not. I don't know. I wasn't in the office when he was making those decisions, but I got to suffice to say that if those two guys had more attempts and some more kills, maybe we go 5. Maybe it's not the same match that it was now. We don't know, but that's my take on that.
Yeah, I think to Jay's point, if you look at the run that Irvine made late, it really was on the shoulders of Clark. And obviously Goss has been really consistent, and obviously, I think in general he's had a little bit of a up and down year, game to game. You kind of consistency was hit and miss, but for Clark, especially at the end, I mean, he was absolutely unstoppable. And in some of those big matches where they really needed him, I mean, he really had some huge points and at some crucial moments. And it really seemed to me like he was neutralized, right? And obviously he hit 1,000 in that first set, that they were playing so well. And Jokanovic was really, really grooving in that first one. And then there were some crucial defensive positioning things that Hawaii did to really kind of contain him. And obviously having Travell in front of him and get some good size, some touches, slowing him down. But I totally agree. I think Clark and Goss have been such a crucial part of their offense that has allowed their pins to do what they've done all year. And so I think it's a great point, Jay.
Yeah. Anyone else? All right, I'll point out something else as well. One of the athletes for Irvine that was really trending upward, especially as he got close to the postseason, was Andreas Brink. He was the key to a lot of the offense that opened it up for Jokanovic and Clark, and he was held to 111 hitting that night. Now, I was looking at the blocking numbers. Irvine outblocked Hawaii in that match. They also were level block-wise. It came down to the attack errors. And then, of course, Tread setting and running his offense. But
part of where that skewed is just the blocking in that first set. I think it was 6 blocks in that first set.
Yeah.
So take that out, Hawaii really dominated at the net blocking wise.
This is the unsung or unwritten rule that most coaches talk about in circles. You could train blocking all day long. You could train it all day long. Your entire practice is nothing but block practicing. The challenge is the best teams in the country only average 3 stop blocks per set. And so to train that much for something that you only get a return of investment for 3 points, you're more or less working around that block, and you're hoping for touches and you're hoping for digs and stuff around that, because those are also successful blocks. They're just not stop blocks. But yeah, that's that first set really skewed that number a little bit. You're right, Brad.
Yeah.
Well, Rob, coming back to your point about Brink, you look at all year, Irvine had been bouncing back and forth between, or at least Kirikow had the reins for quite some time and was their guy. And then they go to Brink, and I don't know that they expected to see the type of offensive production that he brought, but man, was he electric. But ball control was great. And even in the finals, I mean, I think he passed at a really, really high level. I think he was probably their most consistent passer.
Best passer on the court.
Yeah, statistically 2.8. I mean, that's unbelievable, man. He was really, really phenomenal. And so he brought a lot of stability in a lot of areas for Irvine. But when the offense wasn't there, and then obviously, in the last three sets, I think they set Jokanovic 30 times. And then for him to hit, just hardly over 100, I mean, just isn't going to be enough in a match like that, especially with Hawaii hitting with the offensive percentages that they were.
Yeah. And just so the Hokes know, the fans know back home, we talk passing numbers in the men's game on a scale of 4, not on a scale of 3. So when you're 2.8, people that are on a 3-point scale, they go, oh my God, yeah, 2.8 on a 4-point scale, a little different, but still really, really, really good.
Yeah. Well, as a volleyball layman, I only have access to the box score that's online, but where do the nerds like yourselves get the scoring or the passing rating?
Volleymetrics.
Volleymetrics.
Yeah, here's a plug. Volleymetrics. You're getting some love here from all the coaches. There's different levels of access, and most coaches at the higher levels, we get access to everything. And I'm talking analytics and heat maps and all that stuff. Yeah, it goes in depth, and it's really, really valuable. It's like having a data volley stud in your gym every single match. If we can get that for practices, that would be even better.
That'd be a great t-shirt, data volley stud. Just wear that around practice.
Nerd herd.
Well, I don't know, Brad, if you have it up, but I was curious. We were talking about the service game because I know that's one thing that Charlie Wade really, really promotes in his gym. He wants a 9 ace to 1 error ratio, it seems like. But where can we see the amount of time that Tetritsky or any of the Hawaii players camped at the service line on the attempts, service-wise? Because it isn't on the common box score for the rest of the world to see. But I mean, that's one thing I've been taught to look at. Who's been camping at the service line, wreaking havoc on the receiving offenses?
I mean, one, from that perspective, you can always look at the service attempts, and that's going to give you a pretty good idea. Obviously, that'll get skewed a little bit depending on the rotation that the team or the coach is starting in. I actually thought it was interesting after Hawaii lost set one of the small adjustments they did do was they normally were starting in rotation 4, which would be Tetritsky in the back row with Tread up in the front row. And they actually flipped, and I don't know, maybe it was, who knows what the thought process was there, but they flipped and had Tread serving first. So almost completely flipped their rotation and their lineups and their matchup on the opposite side. But for sure, I think you saw Rosenthal go on some runs, Sakanoko go on some runs, and then Tetritsky go on some pretty big runs from the service line. They did air 25%, which is a little bit higher than the traditional Hawaii, but the stress that created on Irvine. I mean, Irvine was getting ace or overpassing basically 1 out of every 10 balls. And because of Hawaii's service pressure, they made it 2 out of 10 balls, which doesn't sound like a lot. But when you're serving, let's see how many serves we have. Ooh, I can't pull it up. But basically, that's creating at least 2 free points each and every set with an ace or an overpass coming. So now, Hawaii just has to get to 23. And that's also partially why you see those blocking numbers go down for Hawaii, is because now that's 2 less attempts they get to block a ball, is because they're getting an overpass or their opponent's not even getting a chance to attack the ball with that. So it was a little different strategy, and maybe it was designed because of Irvine's prowess as a serve-receive team and being so strong in that. So maybe they were ramping up the aggressiveness, knowing that, hey, they're going to be in system if we don't bring a little bit more pace. So we're going to be okay with making a few more errors and not hitting that, whatever that 90% in mark is.
And that's a mindset. That's a mindset. Sorry to interrupt, Nickie. That's a mindset.
Oh, no.
Coaches will tell their teams in certain matches, obviously we want to put pressure on the team, make them play the game, right? But there's some teams that are really, really good at serve receive. And when they're in system 75% of the time, you're going to have to take some risks because you got to knock them off the net a little bit. And when a coach gives the team a green light and says, look, we're going to be okay with a few more misses this set, but we got to put a little bit more pressure on them. There's risk reward there, right? I mean, if you're averaging 4 to 5 to 6 missed serves per set, okay. But if you're knocking them off the net, you're scoring off those, you can justify that. All of a sudden you're missing 7, 8, 9, and you're not knocking them off. Now as a coach, you got to make an adjustment. Okay, hey, green light's down to a yellow. We got to figure out another strategy to score some points. So yeah, when you have those kinds of arms, you can take that chance.
Yep.
But I also think I was going to piggyback on that, and I know I'm going to dive into Brad's stat realm, and I know we talk about this a lot in our gym and times at USA. Tetrisky's point score percentage was like 63%, like 63.6%. So that for the novice volleyball person, it's like, how effective is that player creating point opportunities when that's serving? And I know when we were with the U23 team last year, like, yeah, we're going to shoot for like 42%. 63% is unreal.
Ridiculous.
And then I'm looking at overall, just from that standpoint, from the entire group, it's still Adrian Rohr, like 44%, Kearney, 55%, Travell Jordan, 44%. So it's like, if you're looking at the service game, like the service pressure, and I know we're talking about ace to air, Hawaii was 41% point score to Irvine's 35. So those guys had the ability to stay behind the baseline, get comfortable, take rips, speed change. That's something that is granted, they had 22 service errors, but man, they're standing back there. That's impressive. 10% ace. Yeah. That's elite.
That's dumb.
I just like mind blown.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy because in my role there at the championship match, I got to stand on the end line, and I was standing behind Tetrisky after one of his bombs from the service line. The tail on that ball, he must have hit it so hard, upper right corner of the ball, that the curve went away from Jokanovic and split that seam between he and Aitken. But it was like a Fernando Valenzuela like knuckle. It like curved so fast and dropped.
Well, you want to hear something even scarier. The men's game ball that we all use, the Molten, it's standard across the board. Everybody knows it. It's got your typical tail and typical feel. You get to the international game and the Mikasa ball that they use, it's a little lighter, feels a little bit, but it's got the nastiest float serve dance moves and curves that you could throw on that thing. And when he gets to that level, I mean, you're going to see some stuff that you'll see it from behind, because that's what we watch in the game. It'll go 1-5, but it'll start 1-5 and go 1-1. And you just look at it and you're like, how does that even happen? And the amount of snap that's going on in that thing, it's really nasty to watch.
Yeah, it's unfortunate the viewer doesn't get to see that because they see the sideline view. But if they were to get a couple shots at the end line of some top servers,
it's such a missed opportunity. I've talked about it for years. Please start putting volleyball from behind the end line. You can do it. It's easy. It's not hard. Just one more camera so you can get it from both ends. Get it on the serve receive side team so you can watch their play develop and watch the routes and watch the blocking. And then if the team side's out, then you flip it to the other side. You can watch the game just as easily as you can from the 50-yard line, but you get much more information, and you can really see some of this intricate stuff that we all see on a daily basis in our gym or in our video.
It's not voodoo magic. It's just good knowledge and power of physics.
Yeah, you want to see it. It's like the quarterback cam in video games. I love playing a football game from the quarterback cam because you get to see all the routes being run and you get to see all the players doing all their moves and their steps. The same thing in volleyball. If we could take one thing from tennis and bring it into this game, it's the end line view. We need that view for volleyball for people to appreciate it that much more.
Yep. Wanda, if we are good with this, I wanted to pose a question to each of you, and I kept it kind of down low because I wanted to get your on-the-spot response. But one takeaway from the national championship match that people should pay attention to. And feel free to jump in. I know it's at least give you that brief moment like you just said, and throw something out there.
I'll go first. I know everybody else is thinking. The takeaway is the story behind the story this year of the expansion of the tournament. And if you look at the last, I'm gonna go last 30 years. There's been the top 4 teams that have been in it, and you don't really get much storyline development. You don't get a lot of backstory. You don't get a lot of player interest stories. You don't have that time development. And with the tournament expansion, and now with it going an extra week, you get not only the storyline of the tournament within the tournament getting into the finals, but you are in the semis and the finals, but you have that whole week to build the stories in between. And Irvine would not have been in there in the last couple of years. They would have been on the outside looking in. And instead, this year they get a chance. And yeah, there's controversy, but that's part of the story. It's part of why people watched. It's part of why people wanted to see. And now you have a whole week, all the pundits, all the coaches, all the players, all the social media, everything blowing up over the course of a week, building this pressure of what was coming up on semifinal Saturday and finals Monday. I think that, to me, is what I want people to take away from it, is that this can be the norm. This does not have to be the anomaly year that this happens. This could be the norm. And I would suffice to say that the numbers for watching on the finals are that way because we had that week to lead up to it with all the stuff going on and people and soaking up the content, because we were just so excited. I remember when this final started, we were on our text string with all of us. I was so fired up to watch that final. It wasn't even funny. So that's what I want people to take away, is that this could be the norm moving forward if the NCAA is smart.
Yep.
I thought
I will.
You go, Nickie. You go.
Oh no, mine is I'll probably take it back just on Jay and quickly. Of mine is the fan engagement. I was one. I mentioned it earlier of the Instagram shares. I know there was some controversy early on, and that goes back to the storylines. But I don't think that just the normal masses of public saying like, okay, men's volleyball, like who watches it? Like, are they basketball players? Are they baseball players? What do they do? Like, this is an elite sport and our fans are knowledgeable. They're engaged. They're not just parents or siblings. These are people that I'm on TikTok, and some of the regular students from these institutions, these guys are rock stars. Like, and that's, in my opinion, should okay, I'll talk about my fiance. He was a basketball guy. He never at any point watched men's volleyball. When you're on the floor, on the ground, in front of the crowd, seeing these guys do what they do, how high they jump, how hard they hit, the skill, the precision on the passing, a guy serving at you, 75 miles an hour from like 30 feet, and you have to put it on a dime. We need to get people on the floor. And the fans that we have, we need to tune into that, utilize that. Let's get that going. Let's start sharing. I love opening up ESPN and I'm seeing volleyball now. So the fan engagement is something that needs to be really looked into. And how can we tap into that? Because people love it. They just need to be exposed to it.
Yeah, excellent.
I got a different route here. I'll keep it more volleyball centric. And I think the ability to win a match in multiple different ways ended up being massive for Hawaii this season. Right. And even just Irvine in it, getting to that tournament and getting to that national championship and progressing along. Like, I think they won throughout most part of the season the same way. Right. Which was pretty damn good, of playing elite level volleyball, serving the ball in at an extremely high rate, being the best serving and passing team, which there's a lot to be said about that, where they were the best passing team throughout the entirety of the season. They served in probably the most, or that I'm aware of, throughout the entirety of the season. But that was kind of like their one way of winning. And it's probably the most efficient and effective way to get really good and be really good. Then you have Hawaii, where kind of their calling card has always been serving in at whatever, I think you said 88%, 90% serving in, and kind of letting their volleyball players go be great volleyball players. And like that was kind of how they beat a lot of teams throughout the course of the season. And then as it came down to this last match, is they found a different gear and they completely shifted into a more aggressive team from the service line and as an attacking team, and being a more first ball offense oriented team, as opposed to being a more serve in transition heavy team like they have been in the past. So ability to win in different ways.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff. Theo.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's two things. What's the phrase? The more things change, the more they stay the same. The serve and pass. All the coaches on this panel will tell you the value of serve and pass will always be the most important thing. Can you control the ball? Can you serve it tough? And I think for sure that was a story that stood tall for Hawaii all year. They were really, really great in both of those areas consistently. And then I think the other piece that I thought was really, really impressive and something that maybe didn't get spoken enough about Hawaii all season was their first ball side out. So your ability to side out is incredibly valuable. I think they first ball sided out at over 50%. And there's a confidence that comes from that too. Like in addition to your ability to score points, move on to the next opportunity to quickly bounce back when you lose points, your first ball side out, there is a groove that happens. You get 2, 3, 4 first ball side outs in a row. Offensively, you start feeling like, man, we got this team figured out and they can't stop us. And so watching Hawaii find that rhythm, and really they have some tremendous talent, but they could utilize all of them at all times. And so having the depth to do so was incredibly valuable. And for the Hawaii fans who are going to be really bummed about Trisky leaving, Kainoa Wade was
that's another segment.
Oh, we'll talk about that at some point. But Kainoa Wade was the best server for them all year.
Yeah.
A guy who obviously was in and out of the lineup when he was a starter, was just as effective as Trisky at times. But looking to him in the future, I think he could be one of the best servers in the nation.
I want to piggyback on that because Theo touched upon it. You know, the fact that you go into practice and you have that confidence, right, to be able to execute serve, receive, and siding out at a high level. This is part and parcel, part of the reason why men's volleyball in general has leveled up across the nation. It's because of the roster limits. And I'm not saying roster limits are the right thing. I still hate it. I still wish we could have 21, 22 guys, whatever we want on our roster. But because the rosters are smaller now, the guys that are on the B side are getting more reps in practice. They're getting better at what they have to do in order to push the A side. And that's making the A side get better quicker. And across the country, it'd be interesting. Somebody out there in the Volley Talk world or whatever, do a stat on this. Do some stats on overall side out percentages of teams based upon the eras, right? Maybe this year versus 5 years ago versus 10 years ago, and see if maybe there is an improvement there because of the fact that you have to be better than you normally were. It was easy for guys on your A side to beat the crap out of your C side guys, right? The guys that weren't very good and they're just blocking dummies. You can cruise on them all day long. But when your B side guys are playing in practice every single day and getting reps every single day instead of sitting for half practice, now all of a sudden it's tougher. And that's probably a byproduct of it.
Yeah.
Jay, I got a hot take for you.
Okay.
So we all watch sports, right? NFL, NBA. We have changed that vernacular here from B side to scout team. Because if you think about it, in the NFL, right? Like I would easily go to NFL and get paid $300,000 to be on the scout team.
Yeah.
Those guys are the guys that are leveling up. Those are the guys that are making moves. Those are the guys that, like you're saying, like the development from that standpoint and how volleyball is increasing over the course of the country. Scout teams, they're out here. They're making it happen. So that's my hot take for today.
Yeah. Hopefully nobody gets upset at me for saying B team. I'm still going to say it. I'm a dinosaur.
It's still there. We're going the mental game here. We're getting the mental game.
Well, I'm going to drop one.
Instead of A side and B side, we'll call it tick and talk. That's it.
I'm going to drop my takeaway, and I normally don't, but something really rubbed me the wrong way this last week I saw on social, and it's in relation to men's volleyball in general. We'll say higher up in one of the women's leagues said women's volleyball is way more entertaining than men's. And I was like, you have not been to a top 20 match or just a even D3 or higher match your entire life, if you really believe that. So I'm like, why take a knock at it? It's different. It's different strokes for different folks. You want defense, go to the women's. If you want power, precision, and bombing, you go to the men's side. But I watched all the matches, well, as many as I could have this year. And I'm telling you, 3-1 looks like it could have been a blowout, but the play was intense in the championship match. There were balls by Greenidge. Like you wouldn't think these balls would stay in play. And then you have Roar chasing it into the scores table, keeping it in play. And then a still out of system play, bomb out of the back row, put away, point Hawaii, or, people just going all out. I'm like, how are you calling that out So,
don't listen to this, whoever it
but
was. First of all, if it was a men's volleyball player, a previous men's volleyball player that said that, shame on you. If it was, I don't know if it was, I don't know who you're talking about, but if it was, shame on you. Secondly, the women's game, the reason why it is so popular is because there's just longer rallies more often, because the ball is not coming at them at 90 miles an hour from 5 feet away from you. And the women's game steals what we do in the men's game every year. The women's game 10 years ago was not running D balls. Now all of a sudden D balls are more prevalent. The women's game 5 years ago, we're not running Bix. Now you're seeing women's team run Bix. They steal what we do because it works. And it's just athletic. Yeah. And so anybody who says that is an idiot.
If it was so much more entertaining, then why are you taking all of our coaches, all of our systems, all of our stuff? Come on, man. That is a terrible take. It is not more entertaining. Both games are incredibly entertaining. And if you like the top level of women's volleyball, you're just watching men's volleyball. So
yeah,
you're going to like the men too.
As Charles Barkley would say, that's terrible.
Well, we're all pulling for the game, whatever discipline it's in. Could be on the sport court, could be on Terraflex, or even the sand. I know, Jay, you got issue with the sand thing, but I'm all in.
An issue with it. I have an issue with the amount of coverage it gets versus the rest of volleyball. But hey, It is me.
Well, we're going to transition to our other topic. There's a lot of news that's come out since the national championship match, and someone alluded to it on the board here on the panel. Christian Tetrisky. It's not funny. I was actually kind of disappointed because the day of the national championship match, an inside source sent me a link to Volleybox, which keeps track of all the players and what they're doing in the world, like from collegiate to pros. And it already had a pro team listed for Christian Tetrisky, going back to his Sofia, Bulgaria club team to play professionally. And that was before the national championship match. And I'm like, oh, now that's a huge bummer, So he's moving on to play pro ball. Andre Jokanovic of UC Irvine announced that his college career is now done, which means he's being teased over to the professional game. I get that. And we'll go with those two. There may be others, but those are the two that I cut. I wanted to get the panel's thoughts on the two leaving the game.
Well, first of all, I hope people take note. Those are two foreign players. And I think the real info here, or the real deal, is how many American kids are leaving college early to go play pro versus how many foreign kids are leaving college early to go play pro. And I bet that number is significantly different. I'm not saying good, bad, or indifferent. It doesn't matter to me. Nobody on my team left early to go play pro, but I would be interested to see the stat line of how many college men's volleyball players leave school early to go play pro that are American versus foreign. And I bet that
Thomas Chesky.
Yeah, Thomas Chesky. And Clay Stanley was probably one of the first ones that we knew. Matt Anderson, probably another one.
Yep.
But those are a long time ago. And I think most recently it's probably flipped the other direction. But yeah, Clay Stanley was the first one.
I would say this, Jay. If there was a legit United States Pro League that you could make legit money in and you did not have to leave your home turf, I think it would happen a heck of a lot more.
I think you're right. What American kid wouldn't want to play pro volleyball either in his hometown or in the States and have some comfortability of being able to, know the language and the culture and everything around you.
And again, at the end of the day, it all comes back down to dollars and cents, right? And so, one of the things we're going to talk about in the hot takes later, which is one of my things, is really the increase in resources and funding. If it was higher, if there was a lot more resources, a lot more money for our volleyball players, you'd see them leave a lot less, right? We're starting to see kind of a turn in the NBA and in the NFL. Players are staying. NIL is advantageous. They're like, hey, why would I go and be a draft pick and sit on the bench? But not only that, but now I got to compete against way better players and make less money. Yeah, I'll stick around and get myself a degree and collect the resources that are being given to me here.
Yeah.
Yeah, for us, we have one of our players, Sebasani's leaving to go pursue his dreams to go play overseas, and has some really good opportunities, some really good options. Excited to see him kind of find a new home playing professionally, right? And it's part of it is, at least from the coaching side, is figuring out what these guys want to do, right? And like if that's someone's dream, if that's someone's passion, or if someone wants to be a firefighter or someone wants to be a doctor, like how do we support those dreams, those passions? So like I only view it as a great thing, in whatever those rare instances or common instances. I think it's so valuable. And then I think the other piece to be aware of is it's a lot different for an international player going back to their home country to go play professionally. It's not simple, but they already have connections. They already have relationships there. The cost of living and some of the contract stuff is very, very not nearly as hairy or not nearly as frightening, where they have the familiarity with that area, with those people. And like for the leagues, depending on the league, it's a major benefit to have someone in that country playing for that team from a roster building perspective, with the leagues having different rules and roster limitations for different foreigners or international players within it. So that's another piece. Like there's some guys who are leaving early, and maybe they should, maybe they shouldn't, but they're going back to their home country. And maybe part of it is they're just homesick, and want to go home or be closer to their family. So I don't think it's necessarily always purely volleyball driven.
And Brad, Seba has dual citizenship.
Yeah, but he's American. He's already committed to American volleyball.
Yeah, because he's a USA player, right? In terms of national team stuff.
And look who's in,
Dan.
the MVP libero of Team Novus, Dan Friend.
Fresh
out of the athletic training room.
Fresh from the chiropractor.
Or the hospital.
All of that stuff. I just wanted to, I'm in the middle of a beach training session, but I had to say hi to you guys. Do you know what I mean? So like, what's up? How's everybody doing?
Everybody's
Great.
good. Hey, congrats on the gold medal there at your age group. That's awesome stuff. Some of the clips I saw were pretty good.
Dan, what age are you playing in? Is that the 85 and over? What is it?
You looked as fresh as you did on the Aruba team we played, coached together with years ago.
Well, that much appreciated. And Theo, as your spry self knows, it's 50 and over, just so you know. Okay, all right. So 50-year-olds. So.
Hey, I got a lot of respect, man. You don't look 50. You look younger than everybody else.
Yeah, we got to check that birth certificate.
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
Nice. No, it was fun. A good group of guys and a bunch of talented guys too. And on top of that, getting to play with Lois. He's a fantastic guy and certainly a high-level competitor. So it was fun for sure. Do you know what I mean?
And that's Volleyball that you're referring to?
Yes.
Just so our listeners and viewers know, like, oh, Loy, your name drop, he's your neighbor, but everyone else, like, you're playing with the rock stars, Dan.
Well, there's a bunch of really good guys on that team, though, as well. Do you know what I mean? And former Division I guys, Division II, it was a good group of guys. It was fun. So yeah.
Well, you did a good Nico Paula wannabe performance this weekend, so we'll give him
a shot.
I
had to. Nico is in the stands critiquing and cheering me, so I had to make sure I was in Nico form. Do you know what I mean? So, which was great. I think Nico's team, they won their division as well, which was pretty cool. So they had a good group.
Get you caught up. We have talked about the national championship match, but we were talking about players who've decided to move on from their collegiate careers and go pro. Christian Tuchisky and Andre Jokanovic of UC Irvine. Any thoughts on those guys leaving?
No, both talented guys and not surprised, but I think the panel's probably talked about this, but I think with the international flair and the guys coming in, I think this is going to be a little more common. You'll have guys come for a year or two, and I think it markets them well. They come, they be successful. There's certainly a social media popularity when these guys do really well, and that helps them back home and puts them in a good spot. So I think you'll continue to see that. You'll continue to see some internationals or other guys go to other programs where they might get better deals or NIL things or stuff like that. So I just think it's the direction the game is going, and will continue to go and evolve from that standpoint.
Yeah. Well, just a reminder, everyone talks about Moni, but it was actually his brother Alex that started this whole, like, kind of lit the fire of this whole 1 year international, have a great performance, get picked up by a pro team. And I remember interviewing Alex after that season. He's like, the fact of the matter is I couldn't avoid the money. It was being thrown at me to turn pro. because I want to complete my education. But if I can pay for my education while making this money, he's like, it's a no-brainer.
Well, yeah, and you run the risk of getting injured. If you stay for another year, 2 or 3, then all of a sudden your stock goes down. I mean, that's how many times have we seen it in football and basketball where a player comes back for another year of eligibility and everybody's happy, and then that player gets an injury that all of a sudden it lowers their stock, and now they're not making nearly as much money as they could have, and there's, now they've lost opportunities. So you can't fault a kid for wanting to do it, not at all.
Well,
hey guys, I thought I'd jump on and just speak. If you had any questions, maybe that I could answer from a committee standpoint, that kind of stays me in the lines. But Jay had a bunch of great hot seat questions, but I don't know. I was going to let you guys fire away if you want to know anything that I could help with.
Go for it. He's throwing himself to the piranha.
And what was one from the committee's perspective? What was one thing that like you guys want to be better headed into next year?
The regional rounds, just some like specifications in terms of maybe having an R3, which we're going to try and do, some minimum specs on replay systems. I think we want to work on like some pay structures, some things like that really come to mind, to put things and make them even better for the student athletes and make sure the host sites know that they want to give it an NCAA feel for the kids. And we meet late June, but we had a meeting there, and I just think, how do we continue to make the regional rounds feel like NCAA tournament? How do we do that the best way we can, and the expectations of the hosts that are hosting that, and do our best job with that?
Is there discussion of the expansion staying past 29?
Well, yeah, I don't know yet. I think you got a little bit on the table with how does the Division II survey come out here in the next few weeks? Do they end up voting on that in January to create a championship? We threw out some different ideas as a committee, like, hey, do you say Division II? Maybe we'll go to 16 and add a couple more spots. And can we keep Division II a part of Division I? And so I think there's some different ideas generated. Anthony Holloman, who's our chair, he's certainly from the SIAC, and so he's a D2 commissioner, so he's kind of in some of that stuff. And so I'm hoping he's be able to have an ear and a voice in that Division II championship meeting. And what is the best direction for men's volleyball? Is D2 to break off? Hey, maybe wait a few years and then break off. And what continues to promote our game in a growth standpoint that does really well? And so I don't have the answer, but I do think, generating some ideas and getting a voice in that room so they know the current flow of Division I and II volleyball, and making sure people just aren't making a decision without having some good conversations.
It's good to hear that it's at least being discussed. That's the part I'm most happy about.
Dan, we're going to talk about RPI, KPI stuff later, but I am curious just your take right now, having obviously strength of schedule and everything that goes into it, then obviously the committee selecting. Do we have it right? Do you guys feel like in terms of the way that we're figuring out which teams should make it and how they qualify, do you feel like you have a great feel on that?
I feel like this year even better. Like last year was my first year, and we kind of call it the nitty-gritty sheet. And certainly there's KPI and RPI and home record and away record, top 10 record against teams in selection. There's 12 to 15 things that we're looking at. Do you know what I mean? And so I really do think there's a lot of great data points that we're able to kind of look. And we start meeting like 3 months out. Do you know what I mean? And we're starting to formulate where teams are at, what's going on, where their current kind of those data points at. And so the committee works really hard to try to do their best and do this. I think expanding the bracket certainly allowed us a really great opportunity to get some teams in that weren't in the past, which was really, really awesome. And then I think the other thing is like the NCAA allowed us to really try to keep some bracket integrity, which you guys saw with the bracket, which was fantastic. And you can kind of argue a 4 versus 5, a 7 versus 8, an 8 versus 9. But, at the end of the day, I thought we were in a really great spot with where we're at. There's always going to be a team or two left out in any bracket, men's basketball, women's basketball, that like, man, maybe they're in, maybe another team should be in. But I thought the committee worked hard to do the best they can. And I do think we've got a lot of great data points in front of us that we look at.
Yeah, I think I speak for all of us when we say when the brackets came out, we were all happy with what we saw and thought that the right numbers and the right teams were in, and that the right seeds were given. And I think you guys did a fantastic job. I wonder, is AI being brought into any of these discussions, and then you guys putting the final touches on it from the personal human standpoint?
I'm not smart enough yet for AI, just so you know, but no, AI is not being brought in yet, which I think is great that we're not. I really do think we're looking at it all and really comparing some stuffs and even we built out a secondary spreadsheet. Do you know what I mean? And so like to kind of plug everything in and do these comparisons and, Carl worked really hard at that. And so there's just some guys on the committee are doing a really great job.
Well, good work. You guys did a great job this year. It was very fun to watch.
Well, thanks. So
Well done, Jay. Well said.
all right. I got to go do some more training, boys. So
Look
Are
great,
you
Dan.
in
Ice up.
California now then?
Ice
For
up.
the beach?
no, I go out in 2 weeks. I'm just doing some other stuff here in town. I'm back in Chicago. So,
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Wow, Dan, from the tournament to down at Hermosa Beach. I'm like, wow.
Hydrate.
Yeah, I get that June 8th. I'm there June 8th through like the 18th, give or take. So yeah.
Cool.
Nice.
Excellent.
But awesome, guys. All right.
All right,
Thanks
See
for
you guys.
jumping in,
see you,
Dan.
Dan.
See ya.
See, Dan.
All right, where were we? That's good stuff, though. I love these willing to take questions. I was gonna throw one on him. I didn't know if this was a place for it though. But are we ever gonna see that DV sport footage?
We keep asking. We keep asking. I'd love to see it.
It
What
honestly
game are you talking about? There weren't
seems
really that many
wrong.
close calls in the finals.
wrong that isn't public.
Yeah.
What's
I
that,
agree.
Theo?
It seems really wrong that isn't public.
Yeah.
Like just in general, what if you can pull up the video? Why should that be hidden?
Right. If
That-
it's true, if
That
there was a
leads
touch.
to if there was a conspiracy, you're just adding to it. If
Right.
it was public, then it'd be like, yeah, we all know, we understand the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed. Well, in the effort of time, Rob, why don't we get right to the hot takes and give everybody a chance?
But we still have another partial segment as well, because I call it the one on and one off segment here with our players, because one coach loses a player to Ohio State and the other gains a player from Long Beach State. I'm referring to Nathan Flater of McKendree now heading to the Buckeyes, and Ryan Pelusa of Long Beach State now heading to the Tritons of UC San Diego. So I wanted to give you guys a chance to talk about the movement that we've seen. There may be others, but that's what I caught this last week. So since you're the parties that are being affected positively or negatively, however you want to view it, I wanted to have you guys have a chance to talk.
I think the portal is super prevalent right now. Like, I think that from that standpoint, it's, everybody's decision behind closed doors is theirs. But when you're going into it, the thing I will like to say is, like, people are looking for the greener grass. Grass is greener. But in our worlds, and I think your coaches share the same sentiment, it's like grass is greener where you water it. I'm a big believer in that. Even from a coaching standpoint, I see everyone sitting here having like lots of longevity at their own institutions. Each of you are individually watering your own grass. And I think sometimes, and everyone's, and I actually looked at the portal before I got on here because everyone's portal shopping. I think there's valid reasons for everyone. I think that's their own personal choice. Any decision you make is that right decision. But I also think a lot of times some of the student athletes, and I see it more trending, I guess you would say, like women's volleyball, men's basketball, football, from those standpoints of, are we teaching our student athletes to water that grass? We've all had plenty of athletes come across our path that have left for various reasons, and you can fully support it. You can support them, so you can support the growth of the sport. You can support some of these great coaches that they go to. But are we teaching these kids resilience? We all have different rosters. We all are talking about perseverance. We are talking about longevity. I think it was a couple series ago where I think we were talking about, would you rather keep an old guy or a young guy? I wish these young men would see the benefit of the longevity of their career, how great they will be in this senior season. I had a couple guys on our roster this year that were just phenomenal, but they were senior guys. They've been through the program. They went through the trials and tribulations of some of the experiences they've had as student athletes. The team I had last season, they were 1-13 their freshman year.
Wow.
1-13. After we had a successful group graduate, COVID group, that group was 1-13 the following year in conference. That same group who remained together won us our first conference championship.
Wow.
And that doesn't mean that we haven't had guys leave into that standpoint. Robbie Nardoni went to Jay, and he's phenomenal for Jay. So that's giving these kids the best avenue to be successful. But on the adverse side is, hot take for the Volley Talk people in the world. Like, if your team is not successful from a wins-loss standpoint, what team or group is willing to stick that out? Like, Theo, you had a great group this year. Having that group stick it out, that's going to pay off. That success is going to pay off. And I promise you, when that young group gets a little bit older, watch out Big West. So, from that standpoint, like, it's going to happen. This is the nature of the sport. This is the nature of collegiate athletics overall. But for us culture coaches out there, it's tough. It's a little more transactional than we want it to be. But as we all know, we got to evolve. I'm going to continue to water the grass here and hopefully have some kids want to water it with me.
Wow. Wow.
Well
Excellent.
said,
Yeah.
Nickie.
Yeah, very well said. I think from my end, it's so different because we've used the portal so much, right? I mean, a lot of our players have come by way of the portal and have had big impacts on the program on and off the court throughout it, to where it's really kind of helped us accelerate in some ways. And it's helped change and change the path trajectory within our team as well, to where I think we found a pretty good formula and system for how to utilize it, how to manage it, because it is different and it's not what recruiting was, 5 years ago. It's a totally different landscape, a totally different lens, and figuring out how to do it, and there's definitely things that with each and every crew of guys from the portal that come through, it's that you learn a little bit from, you manage things really well, you manage things poorly. But yeah, I think the portal's, like, I could not be a bigger fan of it and more supportive of it. And we really pride ourselves in being open and clear with our communication through it and with our team through it as well. And we're also not oblivious to the fact, like, luckily being at UC San Diego is academically, there's not a ton of academic institutions that guys are going to be transferring to get an equal degree from. So we do have a bit of an advantage in that perspective as well, to where we're not losing any guys from the portal, barring our graduate transfers that end up leaving. And even with that, like, as our guys go on, whether it be, Gabe went on to Pepperdine and got to compete in the tournament. Josh Schellinger got to go to Loyola Chicago, and I actually went up to watch him play Rummy in St. Francis to support him, and so I think it's definitely the perspective and the communication through it goes a really long way towards kind of framing how you, the team, and everyone kind of views the portal, adding people from the portal. Like, everyone sees, like, oh, someone comes from the portal, like, they're going to affect the team positively on the court, but no one sees the outside hitter or the setter who's affected negatively and now isn't in a position to play because of this person coming in. And they thought they were going into their fourth year. They thought they had, the path to be the starter, whatever it ends up being. So I think there's a lot of different aspects that people aren't aware of, from the coaching side to the player side to the fan side as well.
That's a really good point, Brad, about the player at your program that thought he had put in his dues, and now all of a sudden, he's going to be the guy, and now somebody else comes in who is arguably better, and now they're back to square one. I think that I'll just touch upon this briefly, and I don't want to mention names because it's not my place, but I think the part that's becoming a little bit dissatisfying for a lot of coaches is the amount of communication that's going on prior to the portal being open, and the amount of kids that are getting poached before legal days are allowed. And you may see or hear some things coming out the next few months about some people going around the system and starting to talk to players before they're allowed to. And there are some names in the transfer portal that you look at and go, that's really strange. Don't know why that happened. And all of a sudden they end up somewhere, and then you hear some rumors and some stories, and it's disheartening because the people on this panel, I trust and value their friendship, but more value their integrity to the game and why they do what they do. Nickie touched upon, why we do what we do. It's great to see these kids come in and get to watch them grow and mature and blossom. And 4 or 5 years later, they go out to do bigger and better things in the real world. And that's part of our job makeup is we're teachers. We're helping them become better humans. And I trust these people to do it the right way. And, they always say, if you ain't rubbing, you ain't racing. And I get that part. But I would bet dollars to donuts that everybody on the screen does it the right way. It doesn't mean that everybody across the country does. And it's disheartening because a lot of these people are our friends. and we spend time with these people, but there are moments that we look at them and go, yeah, I know what you did behind the sidelines, and I know some of the things that went on over the past few years, and it makes me a little bit disappointed because I'm not cheating. I want to win one just as bad as everybody else. But if I win a title or if I win a conference championship and I went about it the wrong way and I cheated to get there, doesn't feel the same. So that part I'm a little disheartened about.
I had an interesting conversation with a coach years ago about transfers, and they'd found out an athlete of theirs had wanted to go to another team and went ahead and pursued it all on his own. He goes, all I wanted was for him to communicate. I get it. I understand. There isn't a coach that I've come across that would be against it. That's your own personal decision. That's for your own, but just put on your big boy pants. Be an adult. Conflict sucks, but we grow from the conflict. So take that opportunity. I mean, I look at all the people that I've come across in coaching circles. Some of the most incredible people. They understand. So that's my advice to you, the athletes. They understand. They're not going to lambaste you on social media or whatever. They know the deal. So just be mature. That's all.
My last point on that note, Rob, is that, I had to do this retention study for, I'm an admin, and out of the 14, 15 years of coaching, I've lost 29 guys in the program, 29. And I feel pretty solid about that number. But 90% of those guys, I still consider Bearcats. But I still, even if they're at other institutions, I want to see them win and I want to see them thrive because of their willingness to engage in conflict. Because I had a young man into a grad transfer, and I'm like, let me help you. Let me help you, because most of this, I want to make sure that if you're leaving my institution for your reason, that's not appropriate, but the handled well. There's a lot of douchebag coaches that I might not want to send you to have a poor end of your career. So let me keep me involved. And that's 90% of the guys in the program. And I feel like you said, the guys on this call, it's the willingness to think of the kids first, the willingness of thinking of their growth. And, Brad's model, he inherited that program. That works for him. That's for what it is. This is the program that I built. I'm the only one that's been here. So we are trying to make sure that I'm the only person that you're going to play for here. But if you do choose to leave and we have this engagement of conversation, you're like, hey, I want to go play for Brad. I'm like, this is kind of my thing. It's weird. I go, I want a UCSD mom shirt. That's what I want. And even I had a couple young men that went to the NAI realm that actually played each other, and they did the Spider-Man, they're like, are you a Bearcat? You're a Bearcat? And they both acknowledged that they were in the same kind of fraternity, but chose to leave for one of those reasons of someone stayed during COVID, or I want to move closer to home, or I want to play. And that's okay. And I think that's the part of engaging in conflict is not a bad thing. It's how are you in having that engagement? Just like we want to talk to our bosses, I'm not going to wait and say oh, I'm going to do this right now. I'm going to try to initiate, engage, have discourse. I used to say confrontation is my middle name. That's not a bad thing. That's just meaning I have a stronger willingness to communicate with you up front. That's how it works.
Yeah. Excellent take. Love it. I wanted to go to the hot takes, but I may have to jump away. So I don't know if the podcast burns down because I'm letting Jay take over the hot takes while I have to step away and take care of some business here in the home. But I'm going to come back on a blackout. So Jay, you've got the podcast mic.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Now you guys are all in trouble. I take these questions seriously, and when I send them out to you guys, I try to do it with enough time for you to think, but also not enough time that you overanalyze, right? And so I had more questions this week than I did last week's, and I think they're all pretty important. I will always go last because I want you guys to give your takes first. So the first question I think I have for us this year is, what storyline did the volleyball world not talk about this year? Go ladies first as always.
Okay. Let's see. The storyline, man. Okay, I'll lean into it since we were already talking to it. More stories of the international influx. Why is that happening? How is this happening? I had a young lady that played at Marshall, my alma mater many years ago. She is from Bulgaria, and now she has transitioned into, um, a recruiting coordinator of like, we need to get these young men or young women, because I'm the director of volley, like into the NCAA. So why are we not diving into why the influx internationally now? Why? Why is that happening? Especially if it's potentially going to be a one and done situation where they might go play because they're getting money just thrown at you. So international influx, why is it happening?
Yeah,
Hey.
I'll go next because mine is literally very similar. The thing that I think that we haven't talked about a ton, like we've talked about it as an intro, but is it starting to become a trend? And that's just the one and
Mm-hmm.
done. So the number of internationals that are coming over here and essentially following the Moni path, right? The let me grab the social media influence, the attention, let me come and play against competition that maybe for these guys who have played against pros since they were 14, 15 years old, the competition is a little easier for them, a little bit lower than maybe
Mm-hmm.
they're used to when they played with their club teams. And is the NCAA men's volleyball a great spot for a guy to land for a year, make a name, build a brand, and then flee? And I'm not saying that that is the case, but we're now seeing it enough times in back-to-back seasons where it's definitely something that we need to keep an eye on for sure.
Mine's who's next at setter, especially in US. I think we had a pretty top heavy crew with Rowan and Rosenthal. And then below that, you have Machado at Ball State, the Pepperdine setter Palomic at
Mm-hmm.
Pep. Um, and then who's next? Like, who are the setters who are going to be the next, especially the USA setters, American setters coming up over these next few years? We've had a pretty historic run at the setting position over the last 2 years. And even just looking at the Big West 2 years ago, where, you had like Dvorak, you had Constable, you had a lot of setters who have done a lot of really good things, you know. So who's next at setter and who's going to be coming up and kind of filling those shoes? I think is something we didn't talk about at all. That is, I'm very intrigued and curious to see who comes, especially like what American kids end up developing into more of the prominent roles.
Good answers. Mine's going to be more about personal stuff. So I think men's volleyball has done a decent job of increasing the amount of documentaries, mini shorts, things of that nature in recent years. The two that come to mind, obviously Long Beach State did a couple of years of it. I know UMES did one this year about their program. I wish men's volleyball would talk more about the stories behind the coaches that retired this year or maybe moved on to different things. Pavlik, without going into too much of it, I mean, obviously he's been here for 32 years and he's done so many things, but the impacts that he's made, why did he get into coaching? Why did he love it so much? When he played in college, was it something you thought about doing? What about Rummy and all the years he was at St. Francis and the reasons why he stayed there when maybe he could have gone other places? I want to hear more human interest stories about these coaches and why they do what they do, because we're teachers. Our classrooms just happen to be gymnasiums, and these people leave lasting impacts. And it's a shame that we don't get the fanfare that maybe some of these other sports do, because the content is not being shown on the biggest and brightest stages. But man, are these people important to what we do and important to the people in the lives that they've impacted? So that would be my take. That would be my take on that one.
There's such a
Uh,
there's such a lack in media coverage, Jay. I think that's a really, really great point, man.
Yeah, I'd like to
and
see
on
more. I'd like to see more of these things being done. They might have to grassroots for the first year or two, but man, you can get that stuff out there. It can really build the brand of your program and men's volleyball in general, if you ask me. So,
And on that note, shout out Colin McMillan, new head coach of Penn State. I think everyone knew in the coaching world, but yeah, officially announced. So congrats,
yeah,
Colin.
yeah. Congrats to Colin. Well deserved. Been there for so many years. and is the right person to take over. All right, next question. What trend in the game became impossible to ignore this year?
My team is super egregious in this, and I feel like this is obvious. We don't have the 6'9" outside. We don't have that size. We don't have the arms of the world. We may catch or throw the ball a little bit more than a lot of people. Shout out Dan Friend. We did a camp last summer, and he's like, we created a drill just to play your team, and now I have taken it and adopted it into my own gym to even get better about it. So thank you, Dan, for helping us increase our skill set.
Feel free to share.
I will. But no, lots of throws, jams, swipes. It's just we had to get creative, and I know a lot of other teams do, but I know we are one of the few that, not few, but one of the many that exclusively are trying to find solutions to create ways to score. You got to touch a block. You got to find a way to find the floor. We don't have necessarily the arms in our gym to be capable of doing that. Not saying they're bad, but a lot of teams are in, and now they're trying. FIVB this summer is trying to create rules to rein it in.
Yep.
I'm just hoping it doesn't translate to NCAA. Let's just say that. That's my take.
I hope it does. That's just my take.
Apparently, Nickie and I think very similarly. I think the challenge that we ran into, at least this year, Hilaire Heno, I think, was probably the master craft at this. He was so phenomenal at it. But we talk a lot about the one time the double's called is when the ball is set over, right? And it's set over in a way that isn't clean. To me, it became incredibly challenging to really determine some of that stuff. And whether or not it is legal or illegal, I think it just became a very subjective thing. And it was difficult to call. The other piece is, and this is what I think the game will change when it gets to higher definition replay cameras. The swipe where an attacker puts the ball on the block and swipes the ball out of bounds, right? It literally looks like two moves because they put it into the arms and then they swipe out of bounds. If you watch that in HD, that is off the attacker. I literally every single time. It's almost impossible for a fixed item to have a ball hit it, and then when it's thrown out of bounds, the last thing to touch it isn't the thing that threw it out. And so we're not able to pick it up yet on a lot of the basketball cameras that are being used around the country, but that play is being used almost unanimously, and it is an automatic point for the offense. And I think that in itself will change at some point, or maybe we'll have to as the camera systems continue to develop. So impossible to ignore.
Good one. Brad.
I'll go just the power of serving. Like we saw serving change matches throughout the tournament. We saw it, and being able to do that at effective rate still is going to be able to win you matches regardless on who's on the other side of the net.
Okay. Nice quick answer. I like that one. Mine's going to be about the transfer portal. And in the last 3 to 4 years, it has grown exponentially. I think the first year it came out for men's volleyball, there was maybe 25 guys in there. And a lot of them were just graduates that wanted to go get a different experience. In the last few years, it's increased. This year, I think there's like 5 or 6 pages from the beginning of the season to now, and some pretty high-level names of pretty big-time players in the portal that immediately can go into other programs and make an impact. And, some schools are a little more transfer friendly than others, and congrats. That's awesome for you to have that opportunity. And some are not. But I feel I want to piggyback on Nickie's take is, I take chances on some of these kids. And when I look at one of my positions and I go, hey, I've got some solid kids, but they're still a year or two away, but this kid's put in 3 or 4 years and he's hoping he's the guy. Now, all of a sudden I go out and I out recruit him with somebody who's battle tested and comes from a stronger program. What message am I sending? Am I sending the message that I want to win at all costs? Or am I sending the message, I took a chance on you and I'm going to keep working with you. And yeah, we might take a hit win-loss wise, but I trust you, and I'm putting my value in you, and good, bad, or indifferent. I'm not saying if you bring kids in that you're not trying to do the right thing. I brought in transfers for whatever reasons, but that's the question mark: is what is the reason behind it? Are you trying to bolster a low number in a position that you have less numbers in, or are you trying to out recruit, trying to win immediately? And that to me is the trend that I'm starting to see. And again, I go back to, I wish all the coaches in the country would do this the right way and not reach out before these dates. I hope that stuff doesn't get put out publicly too soon, but it's not nice. All right, next question. Most underrated player or team this season?
I love to hate that I'm saying this, but given some conference love, nobody was talking about Lindenwood this year. Nobody. They were 20-7. I think once Brendan Luthane, Tandy got hurt. Hey, you played them this year. I know. But I'm giving some conference love. I talked about Ball State previously. Like, I'm a big fan of the coaches in our conference, even as competitors in our teams. And we got a lot of hype last year, or not hype, but I felt well-deserved of our performance as a group. Lindenwood, they deserved it. They played some ball. They served tough. Zach Solomon was phenomenal. Like, they had some guys that stepped in and it made some pieces. It was, people doubt the Meva. Meva's here to stay, man. Just as what we were number 2 in the strength of schedule or RPI, something overall. But Lindenwood is the only time I'm ever going to give you a shout out. Love you, Joe. But you should have got more pub this year.
Okay.
Yeah, apparently Nickie and I think the same way. I think if Brendan Luthane doesn't get hurt, that team not only has an opportunity to potentially win the MIVA, but what happens after that, I mean, obviously we'll never know. But that team, through certain stretches of the year, was statistically, on paper. I mean, we're talking about serving, we're talking about siding out, we're talking about hitting percentages. They were doing everything that you need to do to be one of the top teams in the country. And then obviously they get hurt, and actually they were hurt to begin with. I think they had some big injuries to some other key players that really affected their depth, including that opposite, the Brazilian opposite that transferred to them, who was at Stack the year before. But yeah, I think that team is incredibly talented and did not get enough love for how good they truly were. I mean, they were not just Miva good. They were the real deal. They were a really talented team.
Brad?
Yeah, I mean, you could go Irvine, but obviously they got a lot of love here these last 2-3 weeks. You can go UCLA. They haven't got a ton of love the last 2 weeks with everything, but I think I'll go Pepperdine. I think just Hartkey was playing at such a unreal level, and like he's for sure going to be on the short list of players of the year, and already was on the player of the year short list. They're doing some really good things. Volleyball wise, they played at a really high level and lost a tough match to Ball State in the regional final, but I'll go Pep.
I'll comment on that. Barnett, I thought, was the unsung hero on that Pepperdine team. He really towed the line this year. I was pretty impressed by him. I got 2. One is Belmont Abbey. I thought Belmont Abbey made it to the dance, rightfully so. They did not play a ton of out-of-conference matches against big-time teams. I wish they could afford to go out, or other teams would go out and play them at their place. They are a good program. Derek does a really nice job of coaching those guys up. And I know that they lost in the first round. They obviously played a really good team, but they're fun and exciting, and they got a little bit of moxie, and I like that. But I'll go player-wise. I thought Machado, the setter at Ball State, didn't get as much love as maybe he should have all year. That kid throughout the year was so much fun to watch and such a spark plug for that team. Ran a fantastic offense. Obviously, he's got some good players around him, but he knew how to play matchups correctly. He knew how to pick apart defenses. He knew when to attack and when to set. He knew how to run things that were just so efficiently. And unfortunately, did not have his best match in the last match of the year for them. I thought he looked a little bit out of sorts, But if you watched him throughout the course of the year, that kid was a stud. And I thought he deserved a little bit more love this year from a personal standpoint. So that's
I'm going to be a J. I'll go last. Now that I'm
okay.
back on.
Don't say anything about Djokovic.
I'm going to say Jalen Phillips because if he came into this season 100%, I think the Big West would look differently. We saw a glimpse of that in the MPSF opening round match. He started to heat up, and I was like, oh no, it's happening. He was so unstoppable from sets 2 for the rest of that match. And I'm telling you, I was glad that match ended when it did because something was happening. It's like he took his Superman pill and every angle he was jumping higher. And I know that he's been dealing with an injury. I'm like, oh my gosh, what would Theo have this year if he was at 100%? So, that's the only reason I say he's underrated because I got that glimpse of greatness again. And I know Theo's going to have him back with a few other add-ons this year. Matador is going to be scary come 2027.
Well, that kind of dovetails into my next question. Which team is best set up to make a massive jump next year?
My son was coming in the room and trying to get in the camera, so I had to give him a little side bay. I'm going to kiss a little ass.
If they come in, they have to, like Theo, they come in for the drink fridge, they have to make an appearance.
Right.
Okay. Next time, he's like, "Why are you not talking?" I'm gonna kiss a little ass here. Brad and Theo. One, I'm gonna go separate, side by side. As a fan and as a friend, I have watched your journey, Brad, from way back, living in Hunt's basement or something like that. Going from that standpoint to my alumni, former assistant, is his assistant coach, one of my favorite people. The work that you guys are putting in at UC San Diego and just making it your own and making it this national powerhouse is impressive. And doing it your way, your style, like you mentioned earlier, as far as the transfer portal and just figuring out what you need to do. I'm not a bandwagon fan. I've been here from jump, just so you remember that. I want my UCSD mom shirt when you win the national championship one day. Next, Theo, obviously friend and fan for a really long time. I'm really jealous that when you guys match out recruiting, I'm trying to be like you. But I mentioned it earlier from this season, or not from this, from the earlier in the takes of this is the catalyst season. This was the catalyst, like might not have been on paper what we wanted to do, but from someone who's had been there, like, hey, you had some really good years and then you lost your starting setter and you got a new group of guys and we didn't do as well on paper. Those guys, it's going to be UCSD, CSUN battle, Big West Championship. And I need, like I said, I need the shirt with the split on the side that has like the blue and the black and red. And I'm in. It's my take. Come on.
You already got the Under Armour,
Nickie.
so you're halfway there.
Yes. Yeah, that is true. Under Armour. Under Armour's in.
That's awesome. My take is Santa Barbara. Again, another team that, similar to what Nickie was talking about, you look at Cole Schobel, you look at Josh Aruya, you look at George Bruning, all of these guys, juniors and sophomores. And not to mention their entire outside hitter group, right? Between Riggs and these guys are fantastic. We all know the level of the coaching that's happening over there, right? Between Rick McLaughlin and Randy and Jonah and Blaine. I mean, they got one heck of a staff that's over there, and that team is really young. And when it really counted, they struggled against San Diego. San Diego was much more poised and much more ready for the moment. But I think you give those guys another year under their belt, I think they're going to be darn lethal next year. So watch out, Santa Barbara. It's going to be damn good.
Do I get to go?
Yeah, you go, Rob. You go, Rob.
I'm going to go the Eastern way to NJIT because of one name, Victor Novak. Looking at that kid's numbers for this season, I think Danny's got a good piece to build off of. And his Brazilian setter, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he's got two solid pieces. And I know they're wreaking havoc over in the EIVA, and they took a bunch of teams to the limit. They didn't go 5, but they were pressing teams, and which is honorable to see, especially for a team they're fairly young. I believe they're freshmen and sophomore. So yeah. There you go, NJIT.
Okay.
Sorry, Jay. It's your conference. My bad.
It's okay.
I'm going regionally here, and we'll go out of the EIVA. I got George Mason. I think Penn State's, I believe they're going to be a little bit younger next year. NGIT obviously will bring back some guys. Princeton will still be figuring some things out with their crew and some of their new guys coming in that are pretty darn talented. Then in the Midwest, I think it's, I don't really know. I think it'll be more of the same. But I'm going to go Dan and Lewis out of the Midwest is going to take a big jump here this year. And then on the West Coast, I was going to go Santa Barbara. There's not a ton of audibles, but I'm going to say Stanford makes a big jump and gets into the mix for being an NCAA tournament.
Yeah, that's a good call. You guys are stealing all of mine. I echo Nickie. I think Brad and Theo are making a massive jump next year. You know, there was a program when I was in the finals years ago when I was with Penn State playing against Stanford, and they went from worst to first, and that was part of their moniker. And Nickie mentioning that to her team, that's something to be remembered about. So both those teams, I know Theo didn't have a great year win-loss record-wise, but man, they're going to be nasty. We see them next year, so that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to go one for my conference as well, but that's Charleston. Charleston's a little bit of a nightmare because Rob does a really good job at picking off kids that are international, that play at a very, very high level. He's building that program to be one to be feared. And every time we walk into that gym or they come into our gym, we don't know who they're going to put on the floor, but it's a team of international kids. I think 75% of their starting lineup, if not more, is international. A lot of those kids are ballers, and they're coming in with energy, and they got a chip on the shoulder. I'd like to see them travel around a little bit and get some better quality teams on their schedule to go out there. But that's there. And then I agree with West Coast with Stanford, but I'm going to go one different. I'm going to go BYU. BYU is one of those teams that you never know who's coming back from their mission, and they're going to have a whole new roster of kids that maybe we saw a year or two ago when, the kid's gone, never come back. And all of a sudden they come back. They're 2 years older. They're 2 years more mature. They got some world traveling under their belt, and they're just a different team. So I think BYU can be a team that will make a massive jump next year in the conference. So that's my take. All right. One bold prediction that might age terribly.
This is maybe just because mind you, this is going to have to be my last question, but I'm going in the U23 for second round this summer, and all I'm thinking about is float serve reception. Platform float serve reception. I'm going to just say it's going to be a more point of interest in the gyms this coming year. There's some mean lethal float serve. What was Travell Jordan in the last part of the final? Like 50% point score? Come on. Float serve reception. You heard it here first. People are going to start doing it. No hand passing. All platform. Get after me.
Pete Hansen was a big proponent of no hand passing on float serves back in the day. For sure.
My favorite Pete Hansen story is when they were in the final with Surzan and they were playing BYU, and the sideline reporter said, like, you guys struggled a little bit, like passing float serves or whatever. And he's like, basically, we don't practice this ish. Why do we need to? We're the best servers. I was like, oh, okay, Pete. All right, come on.
That sounds like a Peteism right there.
Call it bold. Maybe it's not. George Mason wins the EIVA next year.
Ooh, jeez.
He literally.
I hate the
that
fact
was my
that
sleeper team for next year.
I hate the fact that that's going
to
to age terribly. I hate that fact.
Hey, listen, it wasn't that bold, right? You were right there anyways. But if it does age terribly, not my fault.
Geez. Okay.
This
I'm
could go
going
wrong.
Go for Rob, you go? Rob.
Well, this could be really bad because I've been following something. I'm like, I don't know if this is the reality. Limit on international players in NCAA. Because I did see a post. I'm like, I don't know. I remember reading that somewhere, but someone's saying that something's supposed to go into effect this May. But can't say for sure because I didn't see an official release on that. So we'll go with that.
Not going to happen.
That's right. It already aged badly.
And honestly, just because you have the number of universities that are struggling with enrollment right now. The main one's not an issue, but a lot of the smaller institutions are struggling with enrollment, and the internationals are helping that number.
See, it
Mike
aged really
Charleston.
badly. They got an answer right away.
I'm going an increase in red cards, and you'll see coaches getting kicked off the benches next year. One coach or two coaches will get removed from a match.
Especially if you bring the iPad to the ref to show them the mistake they made.
That was just a part of the conversation. I don't know what you're talking about.
Wow.
It was a different angle that we had.
Wow. Okay. All right. Mine is a non-major conference winner will make it to the national semifinals next year. So anybody like a Fort Valley State, a Belmont Abbey, NEC champion, could be Long Island or Manhattan or Fairleigh Dickinson. Somebody is making it to the national semifinals next year.
Okay.
That's a good one.
But this is my departure.
All right, Nickie. We'll see
All right,
you.
Nickie.
I gotta go, guys.
But this is the final episode, so I wanted to say congratulations on your wedding day for one, and two, thank you for all the episodes you've been on this season. And I'll do it while everyone's on. You may have a special gift coming your way here in the summer as a little thank you for all your guys' service. I know you're towards the end, but I got to do it for all the guys who do it every once in a while. It's very small, limited budget, but to me very small. But thank you for everything, Nickie.
No, thank you for keep including me, making me a guest at the end. I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed.
Well, the ratings went up, and the viewership went up too.
All right, I love it. Well, I'll look forward to seeing you guys on the road. I appreciate that.
We'll see you soon.
Right. See you guys.
All right. Next question. Is RPI still the right evaluation tool to come up with the seedings or rankings for that matter?
Yeah, I guess I go first now, right? Nickie's out.
Yep.
I struggle with it. I think it's men's volleyball is a unique sport in the sense that we have, I guess it's not insanely unique because a lot of sports have this, right? But there are definitely some lopsided conferences. When you look at the Big West, you look at the MPSF, part of the MPSF, you look at the MIVA, and then you compare that to the other conferences, at least today as we stand. There's a lot of imbalance, right? And so I think RPI brings in a really valuable way to kind of help with that, right? To better understand that. I think at the end of the day, and this is what I really loved about what Dan was talking about, is you need a committee. You need people who understand the game. You need people to take a look at the numbers and make sense of them. And I thought this year, just where the expansion currently sits, they did a great job. They got all the teams that deserve to be there. And if you look at years past, I mean, the year before, Irvine had probably just as good of an argument, if not a better argument, to be in it last year. And if you put a guy like Hilir Heno in the finals against Hawaii, I don't know where that match ends. And so it's interesting to kind of see how that plays out just in the first year of the expansion. But yeah, I think when you mix it with a committee, I think it's the right tool.
Okay. Brad.
No. I mean, Dan said it himself. He said there's 15 different metrics that they're looking at, and it's one of them. But no, it is not the end-all, be-all, so it's not just straight RPI.
I agree with Brad. I'm a nerd, but I love seeing it, especially when teams can't play each other. But it's not accurate enough. I mean, there's an eye test, but the people who are behind the eye test need to be following the game. And that's the only, I think the most accurate that you can get is people who know the game, calling the game, not relying on numbers alone.
Yeah, I think it's an important criteria, but I don't think it's the only one. The two things that come to mind for me is we need a lot more cross-pollination, and we just don't get enough of it. There are certain teams on the East Coast that are able to travel Midwest and out West. There are certain teams on the West Coast that travel out East and get a chance to play teams, and not everybody can. It's unfortunate because we miss a lot of opportunities to see, like, Northridge this year was having a down year. If they came out and played a Princeton out here, obviously they played them out there, but or a Penn State or something like that, where would the rankings fall then? I just like to see a little bit more of that. But the other thing I think we need to revisit, I talked about earlier, is we need a point system. Winning at home in 3 versus losing on the road at 5, although 2 different things, they need to be respectively offered points for. If you get into a hostile environment and you lose in 5, you shouldn't just get a loss. It shouldn't just be, well, you have an L and you move on. That's worth something. If you lose in 3, oh yeah, you're not going to get anything for that. You went in, you laid an egg, we move on. But same thing at home. You win in 3, yeah, you should get some points for that. But if you win in 5 against a team that maybe isn't that good at home, maybe you don't get as many points. And so I'd like to see some kind of point system. I know Europe does it. I know FIVB does it for their tournaments. I'd like to see something like that brought in, because I think it'd be important to give the average fan and the rest of us a better indication of who is really doing work and who is just not getting the W for whatever reason, and all of a sudden they're never getting ranked and they're never getting any love and nobody cares about them. So that's my take on that. 2 more left. What is one thing that men's volleyball can steal from another sport to make it better?
Oh, this is a tough one, but we talked about it a little bit earlier. But I think we need a better camera system, not just for replays, but just to actually capture the matches. So we've talked about it many times in this office, but the filming the serving from behind the server, filming at the end line, needs to happen. I think it would be incredibly valuable, but it doesn't mean that you eliminate the 50-yard line angle completely. I think for first ball, it should be from the end line, watch that initial development, and then potentially from there scale out and or have that camera rotate to the 50-yard line. But the viewing needs to change. I think that is really, really imperative. But in addition to that, I mean, I think what we've seen on the finals coverage was flat out embarrassing. And I hate to say it this way, but I played in an NCAA Final Four. I was fortunate enough to do so. At that point in time, we were on ESPN. And to see those 4 games and then the finals, so 6 total matches, get ESPN viewership, and that was quite literally 15 years ago, 16 years ago that happened. The game is better than it ever was before. It is more marketable than it ever was before. It is getting watched at a higher level. 150,000 people got ESPN Plus to watch this thing, whether they already had it or they went out of their way to go and get it. So to me, it was flat out embarrassing that we were not on a national television network, and the fact that it had to be streamed. I just feel like that was an absolute slap in the face to men's volleyball. And we need to do what other sports are doing, and we need to make sure that we're on national television.
Yeah, and I was at that Final Four, Theo. I remember coaching against you. Luckily, we came out on top of that match. But you're right. You're 100% correct. The game is arguably much better, and we're missing out on that option. All right, who's next?
Jay's just going out of turn to throw shade at Theo. That's messed up. Similar, I'm saying, like, the marketing around women's volleyball, we need to be stealing, whether that's, branding and exposure within our campuses to build that up, whether it's building our schedules and building major tournaments to highlight our top teams or teams that are making it into the NCAA tournament. How can we expose at the level that women's volleyball is doing, or a lot of the major sports are doing, to build off? Because there's a huge market that is ripe for generating revenue, creating more exposure, building more brands within our sport. But we have to be thinking like that as a collective, as volleyball coaches.
I'm going to go with, I'm a 51-49 on this one. And I actually heard the idea from John Spera over a decade ago, but instilling the foul out rule for service errors. I know is discussed, but I go back and forth because I want the serving to be aggressive. I mean, that's become one of the most exciting parts of the game when you have guys pushing 90 miles an hour at this point. We were celebrating when Matt Anderson hit 73, and then we see a 87 this year on the international level, we're going to see 90 next season for sure. So I'm like, no, I don't. I'll pull back, but just so I have something to say, that's what I was going to do.
Okay. I'm going to go. I'm going to piggyback on Theo's and add one more. I 100% agree. The camera angle has to be different for men's volleyball. And listen, women's volleyball could lead the charge here, and you guys could steal the credit, but you heard it here first. Behind the end line for the first point of the play, whether it's behind the server or behind the receiving team, I don't care which one. I just need behind the end line for that first play. Then when it gets dug or blocked or whatever, okay, go to the 50-yard line and go back and forth if you want. That's totally fine. But the average fan needs to see what's going on. But here's one more. What if we went to a different scoring system like tennis, where you had to win 6 different games within each set? And within that, all 6 of your players were going to get a chance to serve 4 or 5 or more times. Now your really good servers only get to serve 4 times instead of racking up maybe more points than that. And then maybe your not so strong server gets exploited a little bit and you get break points against you and you steal games. I'd like to see something like that, because I think the average fan understands tennis a lot better than understands volleyball for some strange reason. And maybe we could benefit from stealing a different scoring system. And then you have to win 3 out of 5 sets. So now you're getting basically the same amount of stuff, but now you're seeing it structured a little bit differently. I think that's something we could benefit from. Okay. Last one. Give me your top 5 for next year to start.
Hawaii, Long Beach, UCLA, Pepperdine, Irvine.
Oh, okay. I got Hawaii, UCLA, Pepperdine, Long Beach, and then really the 5th spot's wide open right now. But I'm going to go UC Santa Barbara, number 5.
Whoa. That might not
rattle the
age
cage.
pretty.
I'm gonna rattle the cage a little bit. I have a lot of the same. Hawaii, Pepperdine, Long Beach are my mainstays. I would have had Ball State up there, but then I totally forgot to mention that Will Basilio decided to go back to Canada and play ball. I can't remember if it's for university or professionally. I just saw a post. UBC. So he's going back to Canada.
Thunderbirds.
That's right, the Thunderbirds. And then and we forgot to give credit to one of the news items from this last week. Colin McMillan, the new head coach of the Penn State.
Rob, we got
Lions.
it while you were gone. Don't worry.
You missed it.
Oh, but I want to see what he does, because towards the end there, Penn State had a good finish, I believe, the closeout Pavs swan song season. USC, I'm back and forth on, because they lose a big cannon and Dylan Klein, but they had a bunch of injuries this year that could be game changers for them. So that's my only difference.
Yeah, Dylan Klein's a massive, massive piece that I don't know how you replace. What was he scoring? Like 6 points a game on average? I mean, that's unreal numbers. I'm going to go Pep, UCLA, Hawaii. I think those are the right calls. Ball State's not going to be in it because they're losing Patrick Rogers. That was a major, major factor for them. He scored a ton of points, and I know Indola's going to bring a great kid in there and they're going to be fine, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I think Loyola is going to be in the top 5. I think Shane is bringing in some kids and maybe trimming a couple of other kids off a little bit. And I think they're going to be really, really dangerous. And I think Irvine's going to be dangerous. They're young this year. They still got to, some of those kids. Kossy's got 3 years left. Goss and Clark still have another year or 2 left on their things. I mean, and Brink's got another 3 years left. These kids are stupid good. The only question.
Word on the street is they've got someone coming that can play like Jokanovic.
Yeah, and that's the nature of the beast. And whoever their opposite's going to be, I think is going to be the big question. But Irvine's going to be nasty. And so those are my top 5 for next year for sure.
Well, excellent.
Yeah.
Well, Jay, thanks for running the segment while I had to go take care of business here.
My pleasure.
I mean, it's hard to say that's the end of the season, but it's the end of 2026. And with that, I cannot thank Dan Fan, who's not on the screen here, of Lewis, Jay Hosack of George Mason, Brad Rosstratter of UC San Diego, Theo Edwards of CSUN. Man, people love you guys. And I cannot be more thankful for the crew that has just kind of naturally been brought together here, because the dynamic is great. People miss you guys when we're not on. I don't get hate mail, but like, bruh, what's up? So And that's a good thing. There's good response, and people look forward to seeing what you guys have to say from week to week. Nickie coming on. I tried to get Carl France on, but his NCAA committee duties got the better of him towards the end of the season, and a few others are definitely open to coming on, and we'll look at that in the future. But these guys on the screen, along with Dan and Nickie, appreciate everything you've contributed to the game and just your passion that comes through in every single word that you communicate through the podcast, through video, and just the engagement that you have, not only with the players, the fans, the officials, the administration, but everyone as a whole. I can't be more thankful for all of you guys. And I love this time during the men's season. It's crazy, but the craziness and the chaos make it all worth it at the end when we see what we get to see each year, every match, every point, every set. So appreciate your guys' service in 2026.
Always fun.
Thanks,
and
Rob.
love when the fans
Appreciate
come
you,
up and say,
man.
absolutely. And hey, congrats, Hawaii.
And with that, I'm going to sign off because I got to ask some questions off video, and I won't release it just because. All right, boys. And I'll see you on the other side of me hitting pause.
Thanks for listening to College Volleyball Weekly. Be sure to follow Rob Aspero at the Rob on the Mic on Instagram and at Rob on the Mic on Twitter.